Dandelions, they're my favorite flowers in the sunshine or during a shower. Dandelions, they be popping up everywhere. They don't care. Dandelions, they never take a vacation. They always popping up without invitation. Dandelions, there's always enough to share. Well, I went to the store where the gardeners go to buy me some dandelion seeds. The man behind the counter said, son, don't you know? You don't have to plant them, they grow like a weed. Wow! Dandelions, they don't have to be planted. Why does everyone take them for granted? Dandelions, they're special as you and me. So you wake up in the morning, you're feeling kinda low. Your get up and go is gone. You need some vitamins, some remedies, some tonic or some tea. Well, look out in your lawn. You got dandelions by the bunch or the bowlful. Eat them all up, they'll make you feel soulful. Dandelions, they're special as you and me. Dandelions, they're good for your liver. Eat them all up, they make you jump up and shiver. Dandelion, they'll make a long liver out of you. Dandelions, blow those seeds and make wishes for money, world peace, or lots of sweet kisses. Dandelions, they'll make your wishes come true.
Hello from Herb TV. My name is Dave Lalazerne. Just about now, many of you are probably wondering what to do about all those dandelions that are starting to pop up in your yards and in your gardens. Well, today I hope to give you some ideas about what you can do with this wonderfully versatile plant. It has many medicinal and nutritional values that will make this weed one of the most useful plants that you will ever know. Let's start out by listening to Rose Barlow as she talks about the wonderful uses of the dandelion.
So dandelions are an amazing plant. You either love them or you hate them, or you think you're supposed to like them, but you've never really gotten past the bitter taste when you've sampled them. And most people know that dandelions are supposed to be edible, and a lot of people have stories about their grandmothers or their great-grandfathers that used to eat them back in the old days. But nobody's really serving them up anymore regularly, so a lot of people have never really eaten dandelions and really gotten to taste them where they like them, other than just picking a leaf, you know, and tasting it. This is not the way it is in other cultures, or there's parts of the world that has a lot of old world immigrants. I mean, parts of this country that has a lot of old world immigrants, they still eat a lot of dandelions. In Russia, in Asia, in Europe, dandelions are considered gourmet fare, and people actually plant them in their gardens. It's a staple food for them, especially in Italy and France and Greece. In fact, almost any Italian cookbook will have dandelion recipes in it. Here in America, the Pennsylvania Dutch, the Appalachian people, the black people in the South, they all have ethnic dandelion dishes that they serve. In fact, Peter Gale, he's a man that's done extensive research on dandelions. He's made it his life mission to bring dandelions back to the table. He claims that 1 in 4 American cookbooks have dandelion recipes in them, or at least mention them as a salad green. And I have quite a cookbook collection because I do a lot of cooking, and I actually went through my cookbooks to see if he was right, and it was true. Just about every other cookbook I have mentions them or has recipes for them. Cookbooks you wouldn't even imagine that they'd be in. So, dandelions originated in Greece, and they've migrated throughout much of the world. Tradition has it that they first came over to America on the Mayflower. The Pilgrims actually brought them over as seed because they were such an important plant for them, and they planted them in their gardens in their first colonies, and then they've kind of migrated wherever people went. They follow people around. Ethnobotanists believe that a lot of the immigrants that came over brought dandelion seeds with them. So everywhere that the land was cleared and plowed, the dandelions took hold. In the 1800s, there were several varieties of dandelions listed in the seed catalogs, and people used to actually show their dandelions at fairs and at garden shows. They'd have their prize. You've got some nice ones in your greenhouse there. Dandelion greens were sold at the farmers markets. Nowadays, seed catalogs are starting to carry them again, and once in a while you can get the green, you'll see the greens for sale. Like I was at the co-op last week and they have actually dandelion greens in the produce section, and they had them this winter too. I saw they import them from California. Believe it or not. There are all kinds of health benefits attributed to dandelions. First and foremost, they are nutritional powerhouses. I have a chart here that I made up. It's a comparison chart. It compares the recommended daily allowance with spinach, kale, and then some of the wild herbs. I have dandelion root and dandelion leaves. And for example, calcium, the recommended daily allowance is 800 milligrams. A cup of spinach will have 102 milligrams. A cup of kale will have 206. A cup of dandelion leaves can have as much as 4,000 milligrams. These wild herbs are sometimes 20, 30, 40 times more nutrient rich than our garden foods and our grocery store produce. They are amazing. Dandelion is really rich in vitamin A. The recommended daily allowance is 4,000 IUs. Dandelion leaves have 58,000 IUs in a cup. I mean, the numbers are just, they blew me away when I started doing this research. I said, I am on to something here. This stuff, people need to know about this. So, ultimate health food. So, nutritional powerhouses. Dandelions are really good for weight loss, partly because of the diuretic properties, but also because they're so nutrient rich that they satisfy your appetite. I think a lot of people are hungry because they're not getting the nutrition in their diets that they need. So they're always hungry and always looking for something to munch on. And the dandelions give you that satisfaction, and so it helps, control people's appetites. They also, in the cities, the kids that are having lead poisoning, they're having high lead showing up in their blood, they're using dandelions because it helps displace the lead in their bodies. So it's being used that way too. Dandelion root is rich in something called inulin. That is something that's really good for diabetics. It helps to control the blood sugar. So it's a good drink for diabetics. The flowers have something called lutein in them that's really good for your eyesight. So they help with vision. Also, the vitamin A is really good for your vision, so the high amounts of vitamin A. Dandelions are very bitter, and these bitter elements are actually really good for us. It's one of the missing tastes in the American diet. Most people can't stand to eat anything bitter, and we're actually missing something in our diets because of that. Just tasting the bitter flavor of a dandelion leaf will start your whole digestive process going. So it improves your digestion. The last one I have for health benefits is anemia. Dandelions are really rich in iron. So people that have trouble with anemia, low iron, dandelions are a really good herb for that. Any part, the leaves and the roots especially.
Now let's turn to Matt Wood, a medical herbalist, who can give us more insights into the medicinal uses of the dandelion.
One of the best is dandelion root or dandelion leaves, the whole plant. People use the flower, people use the sap, different parts. I usually use the root. It's kind of customary to use the whole plant, including the root. But at any rate, I use the root, and you wait and till it rains, or you soak part of your garden with a lawn hose, and then you grab just under the head, grab in there, and you wrestle a little bit, jiggle it, and then poof, you just pull it up, and it'll come out a foot or two of it effortlessly. It's really hard to believe, but my assistant over there, could attest to the fact that it really makes it unbelievably easy to pick dandelion root. We learned that from a 3 or 4-year-old girl who walked down the street to a friend of mine's yard. She was busy with a little boy trying to dig out dandelions, and she said, "Could I help?" And my friend said, "Sure." And she just stooped down and she started pulling the dandelions out like that. I was like, oh, nature's princess. So we got the roots. They're kind of chalky white on the inside, which is usually a sign for calcium in the bones. And indeed, dandelion root's an excellent remedy when infection gets into the bone and the bones are infected, and it stops that infection and it'll recalcify, begin the recalcification. So decalcified jaw, overnight you can lose 40% of the calcium in your jaw. Dandelion is good for deep infection deep in the body where the heat is burned deep. So it's for hot heat in the muscles. The muscles get hot and cramped, and that's why there's a massage oil made from the flowers, actually, by the Flower Essence Society. FES makes flower essence preparation of massage oil. It's real good when there's tension in the sternocleidomastoid mastoid right in here, going up to the mastoid there, which may be inflamed, but tension in here, so the people are, and sometimes swelling and redness. It's just a keynote symptom. That comes from homeopathy. Another keynote symptom from homeopathy that's very valuable is that it's the specific remedy, in my opinion, for the geographical or mapped tongue. That's like a red, raw tongue with a white coating over it that's torn off in patches. Little holes, little jagged edge coastline like a map. It's all torn off that way. Sometimes it's just pure red with little vestiges of a coat, or even those like dots of deforestation of the coat, so to speak, at the bottom of the tongue when there's a yellow coating over it and there's like heat down in the large intestine. All those things that can get rid of a fever, a high but deep fever, a profound fever, when the fever goes deep into the system. The heat, inflammation, therefore the liver, probably hepatitis. I haven't used it for that. It is used for gallstones. Slowly thin the bile and drain the gallbladder and purify the liver and the gallbladder. It's used for the kidneys. The leaves are used more for the kidneys. They're saltier, used more as a diuretic to expel fluids. It's used for congestive heart failure in particular. It can work as well as Lasix. It has been used for breast tissue mastitis. It's used for cancer and Chinese medicine. But it's one of our kind of great central plants of Western herbalism. So it just shows you how the tradition is different. Very important remedy for blood cleansing, quote unquote, which usually means helps the liver act on metabolic processes, helps the cells metabolize better, build up and break down things for the body more readily. I use it a fair amount. It's amazing how many people have infection going deep into the bones and so on. Well,
now let's go back to Rose and listen in to what she has to say about the food uses of the many different parts of the dandelion.
Okay, so we've got different parts of the dandelion. We've got the roots, and the roots are edible, but they're very bitter. They're probably even bitterer than the leaves are. So I mostly just grind and roast the roots. That's mainly what I do with them. Just kind of plunge them around.
Preparing roasted dandelion root is actually quite easy. After digging up the roots, they need to be thoroughly washed with clean water.
The water's going to get pretty muddy. Is this pile that you've already gone through? No. Do them.
The clean roots are then cut by hand into smaller chunks.
Splash them around. They will. They'll cook down. And you
These
can-
chunks are then chopped in a food processor and spread on a tray. They should be slow roasted in a 250 to 300 degree oven for 2 to 3 hours, just until they are a dark chocolate brown color. The oven door should be cracked to release the moisture.
Really good.
It smells a lot better when they're roasting. They actually smell kind of chocolatey or something. They get this really amazing aroma that you would not expect from dandelion root. So,
Then you can brew with boiling water and enjoy.
I was at somebody's house that had made pickles out of them. She had sliced them into little slices and put them in vinegar, and they were actually really good. Like the vinegar seemed to cut the bitter. And I have tried like stir frying them, mixing them into a stir fry and putting them in soups, but really just roasting them has been the best way for me. And then once I have the roasted coffee, I do all kinds of things with the coffee. Like you can make mocha stuff and, you know, all kinds of recipes with that. One of the tricks with dandelion is de-bittering them. And herbalists have all kinds of conversations about what's the best way to get the bitter out of the dandelion without losing the nutrients. And people have all different methods. Vinegar seems to help cut the bitter, so making pickles or the old timers, when they made greens, they would put a splash of vinegar on their greens, and I think that was to help cut the bitter. Some people like to sweeten them. That the sweet tends to distract from the bitter. And one of the ways that I debitter the leaves is by putting them in boiling water and just letting the bitter go into the water, but then I'm leaching some of the nutrients that way. But that seems to be the easiest way, and I can do big quantities of greens that way, freeze them. Everybody loves them. I'm sure enough of the nutrients are still in there that it's still worth doing. So the greens are a main staple for me. I use them in all kinds of recipes. Once I have them cooked down, anything that you put spinach in, I can replace dandelion. So I just go through my cookbooks and find spinach recipes and substitute dandelion greens. Like I have a dandelion lasagna in there that we're gonna pop in the oven when we get inside that I made. That was from a spinach lasagna recipe. I take the raw leaves and I put them in the food processor and I make salad dressings because the vinegar in the dressing cuts the bitter. So I have a dandelion vinaigrette in there that we're going to try that has, like, you wouldn't believe how many greens are in that jar when you see it. I use the buds. Sometimes when I'm harvesting the roots, I'll cut the roots off, I'll cut the greens off, and I'll have all these little buds that kind of fall on the counter while I'm processing them. I pick all these up and I put them in a little bowl. You can make pickles with these. I like to add them to soups. I have a recipe for a split pea dandelion bud soup where I put in big handfuls of these buds. I've sauteed them in butter. They're not as bitter as the leaves. They're one of the lesser bitter parts of the plant. You can get them when they're little like this down at the base, or you can wait till they rise up on the stems and just go around and pick them off the stems. They'll be a little bigger that way. But so I use the buds for all kinds of things too. People might want to go ahead and taste them. They're not as bitter.
Is there an acclimation period for eating dandelions in big quantities?
I think of them as food. I think they're one of the safer herbs for eating. Yeah, it would be kind of like thinking you'd have to acclimate to spinach or kale or something. No, these are very much a food plant. They're very safe. And then there's another part of the dandelion, which I don't use much, but you run into recipes for. It's called the crown, and that's where you cut the root away, and then you cut this bottom part, and you have this, and this is actually considered a gourmet vegetable. It's dandelion crowns. There's a famous cook named James Beard. Has anybody heard of him? He actually served dandelion crowns at some big cooking.
Isn't that what you're supposed to make the fritters out of?
No,
the
those are
crowns?
out of the flowers.
blossom.
The problem I've had with the crowns is that that's where all the dirt and the sand is, and I have not figured out how to get all the dirt out of them. I've talked to other herbalists, and I don't think people really eat them much. But yeah, this is a delicacy considered. So you could just boil these, pour off the bitter water, put like a garlic butter on them, and have a dish of these. So dandelion crowns. And then the other part that I eat a lot of is the flowers. I harvest lots of flowers, gallons and gallons, sometimes even a bucket full of flowers every year. And I make a dandelion syrup. I cook down the dandelions, flowers. Actually, it uses sugar, so it's kind of my junk food dandelion. But it cooks down into this beautiful, it's like honey, and it's really delicious. And so I use that whenever I make any kind of dandelion desserts. I sweeten it with the dandelion syrup. I use the dandelion flowers in all kinds of baking recipes. You can pull the petals out of the flowers and mix them into batters. So I mix them into pancake batter, I mix them into muffin batter. I've made dandelion cornbread. And I have a dandelion cake inside that I put flowers in. It's actually a carrot cake recipe that I substituted dandelion petals for the carrots. And there's like 2 cups of petals in that cake. You would not believe how much is in there. And when you eat it, it's wonderful. It's really delicious. I like to sprinkle the flower petals on salads. You know, they make the salads real pretty. So. Yeah, so those are the different parts of the dandelion. Every part is edible. Every part kind of has its own personality and its own ways of using it. And you can just experiment forever once you get the hang of.
After Rose's talk, we enjoyed quite a dandelion feast. My plate included broccoli topped with dandelion leaf vinaigrette, dandelion lasagna, dandelion greens with a vinegar bacon dressing, and dandelion flour cake. And who knew? A dandelion stem can be used to toot its own horn.
Very nice.
Well, I hope I gave you some ideas today about what you could do with the dandelion other than just picking it up and throwing it out in the garbage heap. I think it's a wonderful plant. Certainly one of my favorite herbs. For Herb TV, I'm Dave Lalazerne. Thanks for watching.
Dandelions, they're my favorite flowers in the sunshine or during a shower. Dandelion, they be popping up everywhere. They don't care. Dandelions, they never take a vacation. They always popping up without invitation. Dandelions, there's always enough to share. Well, I went to the store where the gardeners go to buy me some dandelion seeds.